Hi everyone, welcome to School of Illustration, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to do this winter house illustration. The brushes that I'm going to be using, they are the oil pastel brushes that you can get it from the description below. And remember, if you are part of Monthly Brush Club, you can get all the resources as part of the subscription. These are all the resources they're going to be using. So let's open first the texture paper. It looks like that. And then when you import the brushes, all of them they look like this, and that is the color palette too. Because the illustration that we're going to do it is symmetrical, we're going to select a tool in Procreate. So let's go to Canvas first, and then we're going to find Drawing Guide. Just activate it, and then we're going to edit the guide. You will see that here you have many choices, but we need symmetry. So go to Symmetry, and you will see that you can change the symmetry in your illustration, horizontal, quadrant. We're going to need the vertical one, so just leave it as it was. Then if you wish, you can change the opacity and the thickness of the line in the middle, as well as the color. Whenever you are ready, just click in Done. Now everything that you draw in one side of the screen, it will mirror in the other, which is super useful for symmetrical illustrations, as you will see. Something useful to take into account when you are drawing, it is to see if your layer set assisted or drawing assisted here. That will mean that if it is selected, you will draw in both parts of the screen, but if it is not selected, it's just a normal drawing. As you can see, I'm going to select it again, and now it will mirror again my drawings. Knowing that, let's start drawing our sketch. I'll start with the floor, and it is just a normal straight line, and then I will go with the house. Remember, if you want to create straight lines, just keep holding your line and your Apple Pencil into the screen, as I'm doing here. The key here it is to position the house and also make the roof really big. So then you have a space to put all the windows, doors, and all the different details. This is super simple. Just keep your shapes very basic, and then we will add the details later. Don't worry if it doesn't look perfect, because once we add the color, it will look much better and neater. Once you have the house, let's start making and drawing all the plants around. I'm gonna start with these leaves at the bottom, and look, if you can see the proportions, my leaves are like nearly as big as the window, and that's the point with this illustration. I want to be a little bit like childish. Also, the shape of the leaves, if you see, they're like a little bit of heart shapes, and the middle of the heart, it would be where the branch goes. When you position all the leaves and the branches, then I start to make everything a little bit neater and to look less like heart and more like leaves. Then I'm gonna carry on. I'm gonna make some branches to position all the different plants and make sure that everything it is balanced. And then for the next leaves, they're gonna look just like drops. And as you can see, I always draw the branches first, the middle line, and then I add the details after. I find that way so much easier to draw because I can position everything before I add the details. I'm gonna redraw the branches at the top, and I'm gonna draw some flowers. As you can see, the flowers, they have as well sort of a heart shape, and I'm doing one big, one small, and one that it is an oval. Finally, I'm gonna draw 2 little pots in the house, but I'm gonna leave them unfinished. For the floor, I like to improvise and do some floral motifs, but the difference between the florals at the top and at the floor, it is that the floor ones, they are less neat and with less details than the top one, because it just to add some patterns and just something on the floor, but without losing the attention from the main element in the illustration, which is the house and the plants around. So this is how the sketch look like. Pause the video if that's easier to just copy it, and follow along, or just carry on with the next of the tutorial, which is gonna be to add in some color. The first thing that we are going to do, it is in the layer of the sketch, we are gonna lower the opacity. Just tap in the letter N and decrease the opacity. Let's create one layer to add some color. Drag it underneath the sketch. And now look, if we want our drawings to be mirrored, make sure that you select Assisted Drawing. Let's change the color into a dark blue and our brush as well into the pastel tip intense, and let's draw the floor. I'm gonna change the color of the background, so in the layer that it says background color, just change it into a light blue. Let's keep adding colors, and this time it's going to be the house. So I'm gonna create one layer, but look, make sure that the floor, it goes right at the top of all the elements that we are going to draw. Now here, make sure that you select Assisted Drawing again, don't forget that step, and let's draw the house white. The method I follow in drawing, it is every time that I add a new color, it goes in a brand new layer. So now I'm creating one because I'm gonna use a light blue for the windows. Don't forget to use Drawing Assist every time that you create a layer, okay? I'm gonna create a new layer because I want to add a new color. That is going to be an orange for the blinds. Select Drawing Assisted as well and just carry on. The process is always the same, a new layer, Drawing Assisted, and change the color to the next part. This time it's going to be the window frames and also the pot. I want to add some more details into blue, so I'm going to create a new layer, select Drawing Assisted, and draw here the rest of the windows and also the roof and the door. If you follow any of my previous tutorials, you know that I don't name my layers, but I do group them into the different elements to keep things organized. So swipe right all the layers related to the house and group them in a new group. Super simple. I forgot to draw the plants in the pot. So I'm gonna create a new layer and I'm gonna drag it right below the pot. Now here, don't forget to select Drawing Assisted, and I'm gonna draw the different plants. Alright, so now let's draw the two pots, and I'm gonna create a new layer and I'm gonna use the color orange. Because these pots, they are right in front of the floor, make sure that you drag them the layer right at the top. If you see, I want to draw now the plants that they go inside of each pot, and it is the only layer in the whole illustration that is going to not have Drawing Assisted. Also, make sure that the position of this layer, it is below the pot. The way that, or the reason why I don't want to use Drawing Assisted here, it is because of each pot is gonna hold a different plant and leaves. If I use Drawing Assisted here, both plants, they will look the same, but I want them to look different. In the next pot, I want to draw something similar to an ivy plant, so I'm gonna create one nail layer and I'm gonna drag it underneath. I'm gonna do the branches so I know where the leaves goes, and in the previously layer I'm gonna draw some leaves around in both edges of each plant. Make sure that the leaves that they go right at the top, they are smaller, and as you go down, the leaves, they are increasing in size. When you finish the leaves, go back to the layer of the branches and do some branches that they connect the main brush with all the little leaves around. Same as before, let's group the layers related with this plant, so just keep things much easier to find later on. Alright, so it's time now to start adding color to the plants around the house. So I'm going to create a new layer, and look, I'm going to position in between the floor and the pots. And I'm going to start drawing the main branches of the plant, and I'm going to use a very dark color for that. Then I'm going to create a new layer, drag it underneath. Make sure you keep selecting drawing assisted all this time, and I'm going to paint the leaves now. Let's get both layers and then group them, and let's call it blue plants so we know where to find it later on. I'm gonna go now over the plants at the top. So I'm gonna create one layer, and I'm gonna do exactly the same as before. I'm gonna start with the branches, so with a dark color. I'm gonna go over all of them. I like in the branches where the flower join the branch to add a little triangle there, and also I'm gonna draw the black circles or the other floral elements. The same as we did with all the other plants, let's create a new layer with Drawing's Assist and put it underneath the branches. I'm gonna select an orange color, and I'm gonna start adding color to the leaves and flowers, all in the same tone of orange. In the same layer, I'm gonna use two colors, that's gonna be the only one, and I'm gonna paint the two ovals in yellow. I'm gonna create a new layer now, and this time I'm gonna draw the circles or little dots for the rest of the plants that we have left. Because of the brightness of the screen, you won't be able to see the white that much, but you will see it better in your iPad. So now for simplicity, as we have done all the time, I'm gonna group all three layers related to the orange plant. Keep in mind that I forgot the layer 21, which are the branches, and it should be inside this group of layers. I will change it later, but you can solve this problem right now and just add all three layers into the same group. I'm gonna work now on the floor, so find the layer of the floor and create one layer right on top of it. Let me show you how are we gonna draw this time, because we're gonna use the pastel tip round color stroke. And this brush, it has the particularity that every brush strokes, it changes the color into a different hue or tone. That way, we're gonna use the same color into all the plants. The difference it is that we're gonna use a lot of different brush strokes, creating a lot of different tones, but using the same color. So for example, as you can see here, the color of that I'm using at the top right, it's always like a light purple. But as I am drawing along, I'm doing a lot of different brush strokes, creating a lot of different hues and tones, and I think it looks really cute, but without making the flow really stand out from the illustration. It just creates a very nice floral pattern, but in the same tone of blues and purples. Go to your layers now once you have finished and group both layers related to the floor as we have been doing during the whole tutorial. Also, go to the layer of the florals and let's change the layer blending modes into screen and lower slightly the opacity. Now it's time to add some texture and more light and shadows into each of the layers. So look, we don't need the sketch, so let's hide it. And let's start with the layer right at the bottom, that it would be the house one. And let's start with the very first one, which it would be all the walls and the white layer. Let's select Alpha Lock and change your brush into Pastel Dry Soft. The idea with this brush it is to add some shadows as well as some texture into the house. So I'm going to make the brush really big and I'm going to go very softly first with this color. And I'm going to select even a lighter blue and go one more time. You cannot really tell, but you will be able to see in your iPad. Now what I'm going to do it is go over all the edges and really softly go with this brush creating a shadow underneath and next to every single element. For example, I started with the door, the windows, also the plant, the roof, the pots, absolutely everything. If it is too light, you can even select a darker tone of blue or the vice versa. If it is too dark, you can select like a lighter one. I want to add some shadows as well into the plants, but remember, because it is the only element in the illustration which is not mirror, make sure that in the layer you unselect Drawing Assisted and then you can add the shadow after. Let's go to the next layer, which are the windows this time. Let's select Alpha Lock and now this time instead of a darker color we're going to use a lighter one and the Pastel Basic Soft brush, and we're going to go over the center of each window giving some lightness into it. For example, in the one at the top, we're going to go in the middle of each of the sections of the glass just to create this shiny effect on it. Then let's go and select like a darker color and let's create a tiny line of each of the edges of the window. Let's go into the next layer, which are the orange blinds. Select Alpha Lock. And now I'm going to use the Pastel Basic brush and with a darker tone of orange, I'm going to paint slightly a darker tone of orange at the bottom and a little bit of yellow at the top. Super simple. Then change your brush into the pastel tip round, select a dark orange and look, every time that you draw a little line for the blinds, it will change slightly the color, creating a very nice texture. We're going to skip the layer of the plants and the flowers and we're going to go straight away into the pot. Select Alpha Lock again and use a slightly yellow color for the top and a dark orange for the bottom, creating these shadows and lightening. Then adjust some lines around the pot to create some patterns and that's it. Let's work now into the next layer, which are all the blue areas. Same as usual, Alpha Lock first of all, and then with the Pastel Basic brush, I'm going to follow the same method, a light color at the top of the roof and a darker color at the bottom to create this 3D effect. I think the roof is a bit boring, so I'm going to create a new layer in between the roof and the house. And then with lighter tone of blue, I'm going to just do a slightly or like a very subtle line over there, just to add something different. It's not that obvious and probably doesn't change that much the illustration, but I thought it might be a nice idea to add. Then just carry on in the layer that we were before, adding some shadows, this time with the door. Same method, a dark color at the bottom and a lighter color at the top. Remember these brushes, they're super easy to blend and they work really well, so just play around with the pressure that you apply to blend the colors really well. Then in the door, with the Pastel Tip Smooth, I'm going to just add some lines in a darker tone of blue to just add some more texture and details to it. Drawing the doorknob, it is very simple, just make sure that you unselect Drawing Assisted, otherwise you will draw two, and just do a circle. Super simple. Honestly, the process is just keep repeating, and this time we're going to go with the floor. Alpha Lock, And now I'm gonna change the brush into the Paper Dry Soft. And now I'm gonna use a darker color. And what I'm gonna do it is to add some darkness around the edges of the floor. And also especially between the pot where the floor meets the house and just in the corners and in the areas where there is no drawings. It's time now to add the texture into the next flower, and let's start with the leaves. I'm gonna select Alpha Lock and the same process with the pastel basic brush and a dark color. I'm gonna add some darkness in the areas where the leaf meets the branch, and then with a lighter color I'm gonna go in the edges and the outside areas. Now in the brushes, don't select Alpha Lock here. What I'm gonna do, really softly, playing around with the pressure, adding a tiny white lines in all the leaves on top of it. Let's work on the next section, which are the orange leaves. And this time exactly the same, let's select Alpha Lock, and with the pastel basic intense this time, I'm gonna get a darker orange and exactly the same, adding some darkness where at the bottom of the leaves where the branches start, and then with a yellowish color on the edges. Again, exactly the same as before, I'm gonna add a tiny white lines on top of all the branches just to create some lightness over there. Also add some tiny dots in those 3 circles, and let's move on again to the flowers at the top. I'm sorry it's a bit blurry now, but the idea is the same, adding some darkness where the flower meets the branch and a little bit of lightness on the other side, this in this case yellow and red. The difference it is with the pastel tip, we're going to add some lines to add some texture. In the 2 yellow flowers, exactly the same, a little bit of darkness in one side and lighter in the other. Then to finish, just add some details as these black the flowers here. They're a little bit bland, so we are gonna add 1 layer and make sure that the new layer it is underneath the flowers. Then in these layers, select Drawing Assisted as usual, and with a dark color, let's add the back of the flower, as you can see here. Then change your brush and add some darkness in the bottom of the flower, and with the pastel tip just as the stems of the flower. You could also add a few dots for decoration. We are nearly there, just a few more things to go. And this time we need to finish the 2 plants at the front. So let's start with the pot. Alpha Lock and exactly the same, darkness at the bottom of the pot and then a little bit of lightness with a yellow color at the top. For the pattern, let's add just some lines as you can see here, but you can do anything that you wish. Let's go with the leaves. Alpha Lock again, and let's go with a darker tone of green at the bottom and a lighter one at the top. And then what I'm going to do it is adding a middle line with a darker tone of green, and also a light line in the other side. As you can see, it is super simple and I'm using everything in the same layer. With the ivy plant, I'm just gonna add some darkness in the bottom part of each leaves, but because they're super tiny, I'm not gonna really pay that much attention. Then with the pastel tip, add some lines inside, but as you can see, there's a little bit random. They're too tiny to people to notice what's going on inside. And just the background is left, yeah. So it's gonna be really simple. Let's create 1 layer and drag it at the bottom of our illustration. And with the pastel dry and in the biggest size of the brush, let's add some texture all around. Then you can play around with the different tones of blue until you like the way it looks. Then what I'm gonna do, it is with the smudge waxy, I'm gonna just blend some areas. Honestly, here I'm just doing this randomly. I'm not paying that much attention. I'm just going around until I like what I see. There is no method involved. My vision now, it is to add some shadows with all of the plants and the background. I could do this manually, drawing every single shadow, but I'm gonna show you a quick way to do this. And now is when having all your layers in group, it comes really handy. So let's select the orange, the blue, and the pot group layers. Let's group them one more time, in a big group, all of them. I'm gonna just add one name, and look, now that we have a big group, let's swipe left and duplicate it. When we duplicate the layer, make sure that you are working on the group below, this one over here, and let's flatten it. You will see that all the plants, they are in one single layer all together. Make sure that you have selected Drawing Assisted as well as Alpha Lock. Now, with any brush, as you wish, I'm gonna take the intense one because it's gonna be much quicker, and a dark tone of blue. I'm gonna paint absolutely everything. Remember, because the layer is underneath, you won't be able to see it. But if you hide the layer at the top, make sure that everything it is blue, as you can see here in the screen. Now, you can show again the layer at the top. And what we're gonna do now, it is unselect Alpha. Because this layer is going to be a shadow, I'm gonna change the layer blending mode into multiply and decrease the opacity slightly. Go to the transformation tool now and move this layer slightly to the bottom right, as you can see here the difference. Now, in the adjustment menu, that it is this menu over here, let's tap on Gaussian blur, and we're gonna blend this layer slightly. Just tap your pen on the screen and swipe right. And this is the final result. What do you think? I really like how does it look. It is like a very cartoonish and childish, and honestly you can do this changing any floral motifs as you like. Here you can see the proper illustration without the screen. And remember, if you want to do it, you can get the oil pastel brushes set, which it is down below. But also, if you are part of Monthly Brush Club, you can download in the student and the supported tier all the materials that I'm using in the illustration. Thank you and see you in the next tutorial.